All right, guys. So one of the big hot topics of discussion in the nerd world has been whether or not James Gunn and Peter Safran will be yeeted out of their positions if Paramount buys Warner Brothers Discovery. We have an article from Bloomberg basically stating that that's probably not going to happen. Paramount Skydance Corp plans to keep much of Warner Brothers Discovery Inc. intact if it merges with the rival film and TV studio, a decision that may help address worries about job losses and production cuts. David Ellison, chief executive officer and controlling shareholder of Paramount, wants to keep the creative teams of the two studios, while consolidating some of the marketing and distribution, according to people familiar with his plans. Paramount has made 3 unsolicited offers for Warner Brothers over the past month, all of which have been rejected. Warner Brothers announced last week it would begin a formal sale process based on what management described as interest from multiple parties. It's possible the company continues with current plans to split off its cable TV networks from the film and streaming business next year without doing a deal with Ellison's company. So there's that. I also want to play something from the John Campea show real quick.
I know a couple of people over at Paramount, and to which I wrote, I quoted this article out of Bloomberg. I says that Ellison plans to keeping the creative teams in place. And I specifically and directly asked, does that include DeLuca and Nabdi, and does that include James Gunn and Peter Safran? To which they gave me a simple response. Yes. Yes.
I honestly think that this makes a lot of sense. The reality is that James Gunn and Peter Safran are just way too early in what they're building to make a judgment about whether or not you should or shouldn't keep them. Well, I mean, you should keep them and you should let it play out a bit. Like, I would argue that we only have one project that's of major consequence so far from DC Studios, and that's Superman. And if you ask me, Superman is a success for DC Studios. I think that when you take into consideration the current state of the comic book movie genre, I think when you take into consideration the state that the DCEU was in in its last few movies, I think when you take into consideration the fact that Superman, not that big of a character in 2025 before this movie, like growing up, like my sister always thought Superman was boring. I feel like a lot of the general audience think that the character is boring. I think when you take into account all of that, I think that a $600 and whatever million dollar, I think it made $615 million. I think you take that as a win. I think when you take into account that when you look at like the Rotten Tomatoes audience score, when you look at like the cinema score, like audiences liked the movie. I think that audiences are interested in this new DC universe. You have to take that as a win. At least if you're smart and not delusional and you were expecting Superman to make like $1 billion or something stupid like that. And I think when you look at the 3 other shows that they've made, they're like, whether they're good or bad, I don't think that they're really that much of an indication of whether or not DC Studios is going to be a success. Like The Penguin, it was a hit. It was a critical hit. It's going to win Emmys, or I think it did win some Emmys. I think Christine Milioti won an Emmy. Either way, The Penguin, surprise hit for them. That's great. That's not going to make or break show. Creature Commandos, it's a niche animated show. Most people that watched it liked it, but not a ton of people liked it. Or not a ton of people watched it. Peacemaker Season 2. Very niche show that not a ton of people watch. Yeah, it had a lackluster finale, but that's not going to make or break anything. The idea of making a rush judgment on whether or not James Gunn and Peter Safran are right for the job, I think is just silly. Like, you got to wait and see, what is their Wonder Woman movie going to look like? What is their Batman going to look like? What is the Batman Part 2, that Matt Reeves is making going to look like? Like, these are all factors that we have to wait and see how they play out before we can truly decide whether or not James Gunn and Peter Safran are right for the job. Now, I know that there was some, fears of, because of the Ellison's ties to the Trump administration, maybe they wouldn't want James Gunn in there because James Gunn is a very progressive guy. But if this article is to be believed, and if the corroboration from John Campea is to be believed, maybe it's not. as big of a deal as, some of us might have feared it would be. But who knows? Like, we just saw Taylor Sheridan leave Paramount. What if James Gunn leaves? I mean, that's also very possible. So, at the end of the day, we still don't know for sure what all is going to happen. Like, these mergers take a long time. Like, it's probably not going to go through for like another 6 months to a year. So we'll see. But as of right now, the reporting is telling us that James Gunn and Peter Safran is likely to stay on if Paramount buys Warner Brothers Discovery. And I think they're likely to stay on regardless of who buys them. So let me know what you think about all of this in the comments down below, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.